Okay, again, welcome everyone. My name is Jamie Eidlin. I am the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions at Penn Nursing. I am joined by Dr. Sue Renz, the DNP Program Director, and Dr. Sue Keim, the Director of the Executive Leadership DNP Program, and they will introduce themselves shortly. A few quick housekeeping tips before we get started. We ask that you stay muted during the presentation, and to save your questions for the end, we'll have a Q&A. And a recording of this webinar will be available in a few days. You'll get an email with the link. So if you do need to leave at any time or you'd like to review the information, you'll get that email to you in a few days. So the goals for this presentation are to review the options for two of our DNP programs at Penn Nursing, the Postmaster's DNP and the Executive Leadership DNP. We'll review the application requirements for each track. We'll talk about the sample plans of study, and then we will go into question and answer. So now I will turn it over to Dr. Renz.
Thanks, Jamie. And good evening, everyone. My name is Sue Renz, and I am the director of the DNP program writ large, of which we have 3 tracks: a nurse anesthesia track, the postmasters, as Jamie mentioned, and executive leadership. I am an associate practice professor within the School of Nursing. I'm also prepared as a geriatric nurse practitioner and still have an active practice in the long-term care environment. My positions at Penn include the DNP program director, as I mentioned, but I'm also the director of the primary care program, which is a program that includes 6 nurse practitioner tracks at the master's level. And I've been at Penn Nursing, which seems like a long time. I did my undergrad and grad at Penn. I did my DNP at NYU and a PhD at the University of Arizona. And my specific research interest is in communication between nurses and providers in the long-term care environment and how that impacts clinical decision-making. And I'll turn it over to my collaborator, Dr. Keim.
Thanks, Sue. As you may already have discovered, that your name has to be Sue in order to teach in our DNP programs. So I'm Sue Keim, and in addition to overseeing the executive leadership track of our DNP program, I also am the director of 2 master's programs at Penn Nursing. One is in nursing and healthcare administration, and the other is in health leadership, which allows you to focus your area of study in a variety of ways, i.e. in public health. We have a joint MPH program in quality and safety, or in nursing education as some of those examples. I'm also a scientist at Penn Medicine at Home, so the home healthcare and hospice arm of the University of Pennsylvania Health System. And in my research really focuses on innovations in post-acute care delivery, particularly in home healthcare. I have a master's of nursing and healthcare administration from University of Maryland. I have a master's as an adult gerontologic primary care nurse practitioner from Penn, and my PhD is also from the University of Pennsylvania. I too am also a practice associate professor. So welcome.
So you're going to hear about 2 of the tracks in the DNP program tonight. And the first that I will speak about is the Postmaster's DNP. So it's a Postmaster's in Nursing DNP. And really, if you've done your research as to the differences between DNP studies and PhD, the DNP is really focused on providing a plan of study, so content that helps to expand the skills of master's prepared nurses to really learn how to translate evidence into practice and to improve clinical practice and health outcomes of specific populations. And so students in the postmaster's track really will focus on evidence and how to design and implement a practice change type of project that would impact the specific health outcomes of a population of patients that they work in. As an example, mine happened to be in the long-term care environment. The postmasters program opened in 2018. The cohort size roughly around 16 to 22 students. It is a 10 credit unit program, a 2-year plan of study. Students matriculate in the fall. So we just had a group of, I think 17 students who matriculated and started their studies, taking 2 courses this fall, and we'll get to the plan of study in a minute. The program is designed to be delivered in an online, mostly asynchronous type of format to really accommodate the adult learner. And many of our applicants and students work full-time while they're in the program. It also includes at least two on-campus intensives. These intensive, the last 2 years have been virtual because of COVID, but we do plan to resume in-person intensives next fall. And the postmaster's plan of study culminates in a DNP project. Some programs call it a capstone, some call it a scholarly project. We call it a scholarly project or a DNP project that is usually completed in the place of employment of the student. Next. So you might wonder, what is asynchronous learning? You've probably heard a lot about online learning, especially during the pandemic. Asynchronous learning really is the format of the program, and it is a student-centered teaching method that uses online learning resources to facilitate information. And it really is in a modular format. And so most of the courses that are taught in the DNP program follow a similar format where topics are covered in a modular format where there is a component of student-related activity, reading, for example, viewing certain lectures or certain presentations, and then maybe some type of a deliverable pertaining to that module. And that is to help kind of provide a foundation and then build week to week on certain course content that culminates usually in either some type of deliverable, whether it's an exam or a project or a group project or a paper that is typical of many of the courses in the DNP program. The benefits or the advantages of online asynchronous learning is that there really are no constraints to time of place. I would say that most modules are published and available to students, and usually in a biweekly format, so students can kind of self-pace how they're going to view that content and complete the deliverables. So it's work at your own pace. It's very accommodating to students that work full-time or have, I'm thinking of the anesthesia students who have a very busy clinical type of requirement, and that they're able to work in the DNP courses around that. Most courses are offered 3 hours a week of online content. And what we say is that online courses that are roughly 3 hours require about 9 hours of prep time, reading or homework per week. So you can plan on, and it's different per student, but you can plan on roughly about 3 times as much time to really, put into those courses per week. Again, 2 courses per semester. Next. And here is the postmaster's curriculum. There are 7 core courses or 7 credit units, and those courses are listed. And if you've done your research on most DNP programs, the core courses are covered in the AACN, requirements for DNP programs. And these are maybe called different things based on the program, but these are the core courses that would probably be contained in any DNP curricula. And then there are 4 project courses that comprise 3 credit units. And the first project course is called Translating Evidence into Practice, where students really, based on the topic that they've chosen, really dive into the evidence, dive into the research to find out what evidence there is to support implementation of the project. The second project course is really about proposal writing and IRB. The third is project implementation, data collection. And the fourth project course is really a culmination, like pulling it all together for a final presentation of that project. And here's just a slide that shows you kind of the timeline for that plan of study. So for example, right now, the students are actually, this has changed up a little bit, but the postmaster students are actually taking N790, which is our business course, as well as 500, which is the epidemiology course. And you can see that roughly, 2 courses a semester over the course of 2 years, again, culminating in the second summer where students do their final presentations for their projects. The on-campus intensives that I mentioned, again, the last 2 years, we've had to do them virtually, but we do really want to resume on-campus in-person intensives, and Sue will talk about that as it pertains to the executive leadership track as well. But we do like students to come together at least for the first intensive before their coursework actually begins, because it provides an opportunity for students to cohort build. So to get to know each other, get to know a little bit about each other's experiences as nurses, and also their area of focus for the DNP program. It's also an opportunity for some students to decide whether or not they want to work together with another student for project design and implementation. And it's an opportunity for the students to meet us as program leadership and some of the other DNP faculty that teach in the DNP program. Networking, you hear about various workshops, including what is evidence-based practice as an example, what are the resources with Penn Nursing in terms of our library, and then we have a scholarly writing module that is provided to students as well. The second intensive, if you can think about the year after that, the students come together again after they have completed their first project course, which is diving into the evidence. And so that's an opportunity for the students to really meet with their faculty mentor that they would be assigned to, and really start to talk about project design and a plan for implementation. And it's an opportunity really to get some feedback based on what you have found or what students have found out in their first project course, to get feedback from their colleagues and faculty about a direction for project development and implementation. Here's some of the application requirements. An MSN or a master's degree in a nursing field with a GPA of 3.2 or higher. We'd like to have verification that you've completed a graduate level research course with a grade of B or higher, copy of your licensure. There's 2 essay questions as part of the application, 3 letters of recommendation, 1 from an academic recommender, 1 from an employer, and then another professional. Obviously your transcripts, and then if necessary, official results from the TOEFL or the IELTS exam taken within the last 2 years before the application is actually made. I'll turn it over to Sue.
So now a little bit of discussion about the DNP and executive leadership. The aim of this track is to provide those nurses who already have a master's degree and already have leadership experience in some fashion with the executive level skills to lead systems and organizational change. So we just launched this program. We admitted and started the first cohort this fall with 17 students. And this program is one course unit longer than the Postmasters DNP program. And at Penn, you can think of one CU or course unit as analogous to about 3 graduate level credits, if that helps you to think about that in that fashion. It is also a 2-year plan of study, is also mostly asynchronously online and we have 3 synchronous or in-person intensives, which I'll talk about in a moment. It is an interdisciplinary curriculum in that we've incorporated content from Wharton Executive Education and the Perelman School of Medicine's Healthcare Innovation Graduate Program. It too culminates with the DNP project completed in your place of employment, ideally. Next slide, please. So I've highlighted in red the courses that are unique to the DNP-EL track. So we share courses with all of the DNP students. And then uniquely, the DNP-EL students take design thinking in Healthcare Institute, which is peppered throughout the 2-year program of study and aligned as you complete different aspects of your project. The students also take a transformational leadership course in place of the leadership course that the postmaster students are taking. And this includes the Wharton Nursing Leaders Program, which is a 1-week, either in person or this year virtually intensive program. They also take a course entitled Thriving in an Ever-Changing Healthcare Environment, which may resonate to all of you who are out there practicing right now. And it culminates with an executive leadership and complex healthcare systems course, and also with the project courses as well. Next slide, please. Here you can see the plan of study. And again, the courses unique to the DNP-EL are highlighted in red. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we have 3 intensives. The first intensive is always going to be synchronously online, and that's at the very end of August, which is the beginning of our fall semester. And that's when you meet with not only the faculty that are specific to the DNP-EL, but you also network within your cohort, and you participate in some design thinking workshops, as well as joining the DNP orientation for learning about library resources and tips on scholarly writing. The reason that that's always intended to be online is that when possible in mid-fall, so this year it's the week of November 15th, you would come to campus in person and stay ideally at the Steinberg-Dietrich Conference Center, which is right on campus where the Wharton Nursing Leaders Program is held. And during that week, we also have, in addition to the Wharton Nursing Leaders Program content, we have a separate unique DNP-EL cohort networking session, and then another session to network with other leaders throughout the healthcare industry that are also participating in the Wharton Nursing Leaders Program. You also meet with faculty advisors. So we've created some infrastructure around this program in that when you enter this program, you'll have a faculty advisor who will help you to start project work really from the beginning. Since we're teaching you principles of design thinking, we're actually having you utilize those skills right from day one. And so you'll have advisors that will mentor you through that program, or through that process. And then again, we have a 3rd intensive where we join all of the postmasters DNP students as you have finished your first project course and are beginning to get into the weeds of your second project course, where you're designing and then subsequently implementing your project. Next slide, please. So the application requirements are the same as the postmasters DNP program, except for a few differences. One being that although you have to be a nurse and you have to have a bachelor's in nursing, you can have a master's degree either in nursing or in a related field instead, such as having an MBA or an MPH or a master's in healthcare administration, again, with the same graduate GPA requirements. So back to, we are requiring that applicants have 2 years of leadership experience, but we're not particularly prescriptive as to what that looks like, as we are trying to really woo a diverse student body. So what I mean by that is that, for example, in our first cohort, we have some nurse practitioners and some other APRNs who have programmatic experience. And so they're leading, let's say, heart failure programs, or they're leading regional anesthesia services or something like that. And we require that you have some sort of fiscal management experience or that you have taken some type of formal graduate coursework in applied finance and accounting. So most of our this cohort rather, although we're requiring 2 years, I can tell you that most have at least 5 years of experience in their field. If you are in fact an alumni of the master's programs here at Penn in nursing admin or health leadership, then those students can transfer in up to 3 course units based on their program of study. External candidates can be considered for 2 transfer credits if in fact you think any of the coursework you've taken thus far may be duplicative in some way. I could see that coming through the chat. We should mention that the application deadline for the fall 22 cohort is November 1st of this year. I think that's it for slides, right? Oh, there it is, November 1st. It opened July 1st. Then the next steps of that process are we review applications and then we invite applicants as we've screened them for a virtual interview. And our intention is to notify, I speak for the postmaster's program as well. So we're aligned in this regard that we would be communicating admissions decisions in February of 2022. And this just gives you an overview of what the tuition and fees are for 1 course unit at Penn.
And we also have a scholarship if you're a Penn Medicine or CHOP employee. We like to call it buy 3, get 1 free, where if you take 4 course units in a calendar year, that's January to December, keep that in mind, you'll receive a scholarship for the cost of tuition for that 4th CU. And that's in addition to any benefits you receive as a Penn Medicine or CHOP employee.
So I see a few questions that I don't mind beginning to field. There's one about asking whether you can have an MBA without a master's in nursing. That is true for the executive program. That is not true for the postmaster's program. Your master's must be in nursing. So yes, for the executive program. We only have 1 time of year that we start, and that is in fall. So you're applying, for example, in this November to begin in fall of 22. You are taking usually 2 courses at a time. There's a question about, can you take 1 course at a time? We don't recommend that. However, we will work with students should something in their life circumstances change that necessitates changing the pace. But we really do recommend, and we have combined courses that we think are possible to take concurrently while you are working full-time. As Sue mentioned, this is geared for a full-time employee. And we do think that because most of it is asynchronous, you can work ahead, although most times chronologically, but you can work ahead and then you can, slow it down during busy times. Another question about a master in biomolecular engineering. Yes, if you meet the criteria for leadership and fiscal management experience, if you're speaking about the DNP. The question has been answered about contacting someone directly, as well as regarding admissions. We have the 2 emails up here. So admissions directly would go to the admissions@nursing.upenn.edu email. And then we have a DNP general email that you can also email to. And then we have a manager who would review that email and then forward it. If she can't answer those questions directly, then she'll forward it to Dr. Vance and myself, depending on the track. There's a question. Sorry, Sue, do you want to take the question from Lolita about someone who has their own business and has a question about finding maybe a place? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. I guess it just depends. Most of the projects that students design and implement are negotiated, if you will, with the organization where they work, meaning that it's a project that might have interest, student interest in a particular area, but it's also something hopefully that will benefit the organization too. So, in the event that that's not possible for a business that you own yourself, that we have, there are many of our partners that are looking for DNP students for project design and implementation. Is there a scholarship being offered for the postmasters? I'm not aware of a full scholarship. I know that students or applicants who are part of our health system, utilize the tuition benefit that's provided within the UPHS health system. And then beyond that, many students who are interested eventually in going into maybe a nurse educator role use nurse faculty loan dollars to pay for their DNP education. That's a federally supported loan repayment program that if after, I think it's 8 months after graduation, if you secure a nurse educator job in an institution, that there's, I think, 80% loan forgiveness.
85.
85, thanks, Sue. I use that for my DNP for a portion of that, and it was a godsend not to have to pay back, $45,000. So that's one that I'm aware of. And Jamie,
Can I add?
go
Oh, I
ahead.
was going to say, can I add one
Yeah.
point about having your own business? We do have a student in the DNPEL program, for example, who is a nurse anesthetist and runs her own nursing anesthesia business and hires other nurse anesthetists, and then they contract with a number of different, for the most part, outpatient surgical areas. And she'll absolutely be completing her project with her own, within her own business. There was a question about, can middle managers apply for the DNPEL? Absolutely. This program is really geared for those at the middle management level in order to prepare you for the executive level. Although we do have some executive level students in the program as well.
The question, do you have literature for this scholarship? Are you speaking about the NFLP that I just mentioned? Yeah, I mean, if you just Google that nurse faculty loan program, it's a HRSA loan. There's plenty of information. And I know that within Penn Nursing, there's always an officer, someone within our financial aid division, and her name is Antoinette O'Terry, who manages questions from students about, like, if you're going to apply for that, she helps navigate. There you go. And her email is O'Terry, OTERI @nursing.upenn.edu.
Or the generic financial aid, because more than one person answers that email and all can answer questions about the nurse faculty loan. What I can just briefly tell you about it is that every year that you work to a total of 4 years as a full-time faculty member, then each year the first year after you show evidence that you're employed, 20% is forgiven. The second year, another 20, third year, another 20, and then your last year, 25%, and then you'll owe the balance after that. And absolutely, Penn Nursing participates in the nurse faculty loan. They have applied for and received funding through the nurse faculty loan program.
So to Robin's question, I would say, if you know any faculty who might still be part of Penn Nursing when you attended, that hopefully they could provide you with a letter of recommendation. If not, Jamie, we're flexible with that, aren't we?
We are flexible. We understand that people might not have a strong academic letter of recommendation, especially if they've been out of school for 17 years, such as yourself. If you have other experiences that you feel might lend itself to a classroom setting or a rigorous academic environment. Perhaps you participated in a research project, a QI project, something like that. That might be a good reference to use. But if not, we can certainly take professional recommendation letters.
So the total, oh, go ahead.
Do you want, I was going to, I think we were just going to answer the same question. I was going to ask Jamie to go back a couple of slides and just show the tuition page again. And then obviously you extrapolate that by 10 or 11 CUs, depending on the program that you're interested in. And no, you cannot take one course per year. And the reason being is one of the things that Sue and I have learned by honestly talking to a number of different DNP programs across the country and talking to a number of graduates of DNP programs, that one of the most powerful aspects besides the education itself is that you are in a cohort, and the power of that cohort in terms of support as you're working on projects, networking, and continued networking beyond graduation or after graduation. And so we really tried to have the cohort remain together and taking courses together at a time. Yeah.
There was a question, I'm not sure if we got to it. Lolita asked, their experience within fiscal management has been within my own business. Do you think it'd be a good idea to apply for the executive leadership track?
It really depends on if you feel like you have a pretty good understanding of fiscal management. And it's been for a couple of years. I think you could make that case. A couple of years by the time you start, by the way. I can tell you that we had a couple of students who, although they met the criteria, felt that they weren't really strong in that area. And so I've worked with them that they've added a half CU primer on fiscal accounting. So that's another possible, should you minimally meet the criteria and feel that you would benefit from further study in that content area. I think we've addressed all the questions, right? Did we miss anything?
I don't think so.
It looks like there was a question sent to me. Do clinical preceptors count for academic recommendations? Potentially. I wouldn't, personally, from an admissions perspective, I wouldn't get too caught up in what's an academic, sometimes the lines are blurred a little. So if you feel they can talk about your academic abilities, then it can certainly count towards an academic recommendation. But if either Sue has anything to add.
I would agree with that. And also to the next question, when we look at, we utilize a holistic admission. So we look at every applicant, hopefully from a holistic perspective, not just metrics alone. And so, GPA and letters of recommendation are important. It's also important to see your writing ability and also, the reasons, and you'll see from the application questions, the reasons why you want to pursue a DNP.
I would add that if you have particular concerns or perhaps something you would want us to consider when looking at your application, to address those in your essay as possible as well. That's not a negative, I'm not sure what the last question means. Maybe Polly could add a little bit more about our connection to Hopkins and Columbia. I'm not sure what that question quite means.
I'm going to come off mute if that's okay. I just, in doing my research about different DNP programs that were out there, there was a webinar actually I just signed up that's next that had a connection between Penn, Columbia and Johns Hopkins. And so I didn't know if there was some sort of association with the 3 schools or if it just is a separate webinar.
That's a separate webinar that goes over all of our programs generally.
Got it.
We tend to recruit with Johns Hopkins and Columbia because we offer similar programs.
Okay.
I would say you don't need to attend that webinar if you've already attended this.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. That saves me an hour.
I'm going to go back a little bit. So in terms of choosing a DNP advisor, so we do match you with a faculty advisor or faculty mentor, if you will, and it's usually based on, if possible, your area of interest and you know, faculty's program of research, their experience working with DNP students. So it's a process that we look at once you are in the program, and we hear more about what your area of focus is, and we try to assign you that person before you start your first project course. And the anesthesia students work in groups. Some of the postmaster students have paired off and they would share the same faculty mentor. I can't see any reason why there wouldn't be opportunities to engage with the Global Center for Women's Health. But I would need to do a little more investigating into that as to how that would happen at a distance. Jamie listed the cost.
Jamie, do you want to address if the letters of recommendation come in after November 1st?
Sure. So we strongly recommend that you reach out to your recommenders early, since they are most likely busy and you want to give them ample time to submit the recommendation. You register your recommenders through the application, they're emailed the form, and it's all handled electronically. We can allow a few days grace period for your recommenders, but we really need them in within a few days after November 1st, if not on or before November 1st. We have a really quick turnaround with processing and reviewing the applications, because we want to get interviews and decisions out as soon as possible. So you hopefully receive good news as soon as possible. So try and get those in on or before November 1st.
So the letters of recommendation are from an employer, an academic, and a professional recommendation.
You need 3 recommendations. You can request up to 5. You don't get any extra points for submitting more than 5. That's just for your benefit.
The scholarships and loan repayment are available for both tracks, NFLP, right, Sue?
Yes.
Decision letters or decisions are made when, Jamie?
We said February.
February.
22.
Yes, to answer Jessica's question, you do get an email when the recommender has submitted the recommendation, and you can nudge them through your application status page. You're able to send reminder emails to them. And to answer the next question, we did go over this. An academic reference is not required. We do understand if people have been out of school for a while, it may be difficult to obtain a strong academic reference. So in that case, you could submit 3 professional recommendations. Looks like questions are slowing down, so I will put the contact information on the screen again. Just want to thank everyone again for attending the webinar. Thank you to Dr. Renz and Dr. Keim for your time. Didn't mean for that to rhyme, but here. Again, the deadline for fall 22 enrollment is November 1st, so you have plenty of time to submit an application. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions, and we look forward to reviewing your applications. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for coming tonight.